Hey Defenders, this is Doug Burks with Security Onion Solutions. I started Security Onion in 2008 to provide a free and open source platform to help you peel back the layers of your enterprise and make your adversaries cry. Today, Security Onion has been downloaded over 1 million times and is being used by security teams around the world for threat hunting, enterprise security monitoring, and log management. In the last video, we installed Security Onion Hybrid Hunter Beta 1. We recently released Beta 2, and you can see that blog post here. In this video, we're going to take a look at the big new feature in Beta 2, which is a new web interface designed for hunting. If you need to install Beta 2, you can follow along with the previous video that was on Beta 1, as the installation process is very much the same. I've already installed Security Onion Hybrid Hunter Beta 2 in this virtual machine. I've already configured it. It's already seen some network traffic. So we're ready to log into Security Onion console. Now that we're logged in, I can click Hunt on the left-hand side, and that takes us to our new web interface for hunting. Now, in order to maximize our usage of our screen real estate here, I'm going to click this, and that will collapse the menu, and it gives us a little bit more space. Now, for this hunting web interface, we start off with just some minimal elements here. This is our search bar, and we have a time range. This defaults to the last 24 hours. You can adjust that to whatever you need to be. This default query is going to search for all logs, and then it's going to group by observer.name. In other words, what is the name of whatever device saw that particular log or those particular logs. So we can run this query by clicking Hunt, and we see that we found 44,000 logs. So we have some new elements on our web page now. So we first have most occurrences for this particular search. This doesn't show a whole lot of data, but normally you would expect to see this is kind of your top 10. And then fewest occurrences is kind of your bottom 10. So this is kind of your long tail over here. And you'll see this a little bit better in some of the other queries that we'll look at in a minute. Scrolling down, we have this middle section, which is group metrics. So if you remember, we did a group by observer.name, and that's exactly what we're showing here under group metrics. And that's that the vast majority of our results set has an observer name of hhvm-eval, and that's the host name of this particular virtual machine. Now, if I continue to scroll down, the final section here is events. And this is a data table which shows all of my results, and we have one line for each result. And if I want to drill into a row, I can click the down arrow here, and we see all of the individual fields within that particular log. Now, what else can we do? So you'll notice that for this group by field and for the fields down here in the data table, we have plus and minus. This allows you to include and exclude those values in your query. So for example, if I wanted to just look at a source IP of 172.16.150.20, I could include that, and that's going to update my query. I could then click Hunt, and that's going to refresh and take us down to 669 events, and now all of these down here are showing for that source IP. Now, if I wanted to exclude, I could use the minus sign there. So if I wanted to exclude, let's say 58.64.132.141, I click the minus sign, that updates my query, and I click Hunt. That now takes me down to 11 events, and we see those listed there. So again, you can click the down arrow to drill into an individual log. You can look at the individual fields there. And the other thing that you can do from this interface is you can pivot to full packet capture. So if I see interesting traffic that I might want to take a look at the full packet capture, I can click this link I can either click PCAP directly to open it in this window, or I can click this PCAP link with an arrow to open it in a new tab. That's going to go out to our full packet capture store. It's going to retrieve that stream and it's going to render it as an ASCII transcript. We can see this is FTP, this is clear text traffic, so it's easy for us to read. So that's pretty powerful to be able to do some threat hunting and very quickly and easily pivot to full packet capture. Now let's take a look at some of our other default queries. So if I click this drop-down box, this was the first default query that we started off with. We also have star group by event.module. This is where things start to get more interesting from a visualization standpoint, because now we start to see these top 10, and we see that because we're grouping by event.module, we see we have 4 different event.modules represented here. The vast majority of our data is Zeek logs. We do have some Suricata alerts and some Strucka logs and some OSEC or Wazoo host-based IDS alerts. So again, you could use the magnifying glass to include or exclude any of these. You could drill into these logs. And another thing that you can do is you can, once you've drilled into a log, if there's a particular field here that you want to add to your group by, you can do that by clicking this icon to the left of the field name. So for example, if I wanted to group by the country name, the destination country name, I click this. That's going to update my query to include destination.go.countryname. I now click hunt, and that's going to add that to my group by here. So now you can see I not only have the event module, but I also have the destination.go.countryname. Let's take a look at another one of our predefined queries. So we click the drop-down box and we go down to Zeek notice. So this takes all of our Zeek notices and groups by notice.note and notice.message. And that shows you that we have a whole bunch of SSL invalid server certs, and there's different messages for each of those. We have a certain number of expired certificates, a certain number of self-signed certificates, and so on and so forth. Now, in addition to Zeek notices, we have a whole bunch of other Zeek logs. And so we might take a look at our Zeek con log or connection log, and we might group that by IP and port. And so again, you get your kind of top 10 IP addresses. You might consider that kind of your top talkers on your network. And then fewest occurrences, that's that long tail. And those might be anomalous connections or anomalous hosts that just had very infrequent connections. So in the group metrics section, we are grouping by source IP, destination IP, network protocol, and destination port. And so you could start to look for patterns here. You could ask the question, why is this network tuple so frequent in my network traffic? If you consider the case of beaconing or command and control traffic, that could create a high number of connections because it's beaconing out on a periodic basis, maybe a connection every minute or so. Those connections are going to add up fast, and that's going to bubble up to the top of the list. So you might investigate that, and you might find something interesting there. Now let's take a look at another default query. Let's move on from the con log, and now let's look at DHCP. So we could look at DHCP leases, and this is going to show you the DHCP host names, domains, and requested addresses. Again, look through that for anything that looks interesting. Obviously, you know the host names on your network, you know the domain names on your network, and you know the typical address range or address ranges on your network. So start looking through that list for anything that's anomalous. Include or exclude terms as necessary, and continually filter that result list and whittle it down until you start finding something that's of interest. Looking at another query here, we might be interested in DNS traffic. So we look at our Zeek DNS logs, and we could group by port. So this is going to show us our DNS query names and group it by port as well. And so one of the things that you'll notice here is that we see not only port 53, which we would normally expect for DNS traffic, but we also see other ports like 137 and 5353, and that's because Zeek, as it's monitoring our network traffic, it will record not only DNS lookups, but also Windows NetBIOS name lookups and multicast DNS lookups and those kinds of other name lookups which aren't traditional DNS on port 53, but yet they are name lookups, and so they're included in this particular log. And so if you wanted to look at just the real true DNS traffic, you might filter to just port 53. That adds that to the query. We then click Hunt. Now all of these are showing port 53, and now we could look through this list for interesting domain names. Now, after DNS, we might want to take a look at example HTTP. We might take a look at HTTP group by destination port, a very similar concept there. We expect HTTP to normally be on port 80. We might want to investigate HTTP traffic on non-standard ports. And that's exactly what you're seeing there. So you might drill into, why am I seeing HTTP on port 443? Hunt for that, and then start looking at some of these raw logs themselves and see where that traffic is actually going, what's it actually doing, and is that suspicious for my enterprise. Also looking at HTTP, we might look at user agents. So we could look for interesting user agents. That might be old software that's outdated and vulnerable. That might be user agents that should not exist on my network. And so why are they there? It might be malware. It might be somebody's brought in something from home and connected it to the enterprise network. But those are really good ways of looking for unexpected devices or unexpected processes running on your network. For HTTP, another thing we might want to look at is HTTP with exe downloads. This is going to look at all of our Zeek HTTP logs and specifically look for a MIME type of DOS exec. So this is going to be a Windows executable, and this is always interesting to look at. And so this might be legitimate traffic like Windows Update, but it might also be something that's not so legitimate, something that's a little bit more suspicious. And especially when it comes to EXEs being downloaded from web servers without a fully qualified domain name. So if a user is going straight to a bare IP address like this, or like this, or like this, and downloading an EXE, that might be something suspicious that you want to investigate. After HTTP, we might want to take a look at things like SSL. So of course, SSL is encrypted. But the host name that the user is going to, the fully qualified domain name, is going to be in that SSL certificate, which has to be exchanged in clear text. So that gives us an opportunity to see at least where the user is going, even if we don't get to see the payload of those connections. And so we might take a look at this list and start filtering through there, looking for interesting websites that our users are going to. Again, keep in mind that you can write your own queries here, you can change your time range here, you can filter in the group metrics, you can filter down the events table, you can drill into the events table and look at the individual fields, you can filter based on the values, and you can add particular fields to your group bys. And so this gives you a lot of capability in terms of rapidly slicing and dicing your data and looking for those anomalies on your network, looking for those adversaries that might be hiding out on your network. On behalf of all of us here at Security Onion Solutions, we'd like to say thank you for tuning in to this YouTube video. If you are interested in things like training or professional services or hardware appliances, please reach out to us at securityonionsolutions.com. We've got contact information there. And we'd love to talk to you and figure out how we can help you peel back the layers of your enterprise and make your adversaries cry.